Hey everyone, and welcome! I am absolutely thrilled to have you here with us today. We are jumping right into a deep dive, an in-depth urban sci-fi book overview of a novel that has literally taken the literary world by storm and sparked some intense debate. We're looking at Cebo Campbell's highly discussed debut novel, Sky Full of Elephants. Whether you've already read it and have some pretty strong opinions of your own, or you're just kind of curious about what all the buzz is about, we're going to unpack the whole shebang. The world building, the core themes, and, of course, the incredibly polarizing reception this book has gotten.
Okay, let's dive into this. The entire novel really hinges on this explosive, deeply thought-provoking core premise. The author poses a monumental what-if question. What happens when the gaze of the oppressor is removed entirely? To answer that, the book kicks off with a massive, inexplicable event. Out of nowhere, basically every white person in America walks into the nearest body of water and drowns. Just like that, they're gone. And what's left behind is a world grappling with a sudden, complete absence of whiteness, which forces the remaining characters to figure out exactly who they are without the defining contrast of that gaze.
So, here is the roadmap for our urban sci-fi book overview today. First, we'll look at a world without whiteness. Then we'll follow Charlie and Sydney's journey and explore visions of a black utopia. Next, we'll break down the meaning behind the elephants. And finally, we'll look at the book's praise and revolutionary impact right alongside its critiques and controversial themes.
Section 1. A world without whiteness and the cataclysmic event. As I mentioned, this inciting incident is as sudden as it is shocking. We actually enter the story about a year after the event happens. And, the world hasn't descended into your stereotypical zombie apocalypse. Instead, the remaining population, specifically Black Americans, has had to very quickly adapt to a fundamentally altered reality. Society didn't collapse into absolute chaos. Instead, the power dynamics, the infrastructure, and all those cultural centers of gravity just completely shifted.
But before we go any further, it's really helpful to ground ourselves in exactly what literary tool Campbell is using here. It's speculative fiction. It's a broad genre that basically takes our reality and just tweaks one major variable to explore these profound societal questions. By introducing the supernatural event, Campbell creates a hypothetical vacuum. He's using speculative fiction to explore unfiltered Black existence, identity, and the incredibly heavy burden of historical trauma, but doing it without the immediate presence of the systems that historically caused it in the first place.
Actually, the author himself perfectly described the purpose of this provocative setup in an interview. He said, "The book is a flat table that we can gather around." And honestly, that is exactly how we're going to approach this overview today. We are impartially gathering around this flat table to examine the highly complex, sometimes uncomfortable, and just deeply fascinating conversations this book was designed to spark.
Moving into Section 2, Charlie and Sydney's journey, a road trip to self-discovery. While the premise is huge and global, the plot itself is actually deeply intimate. The main narrative engine of the book is a classic road trip across a changed America, taken by two characters who have just as much internal baggage as they do external obstacles. And this brilliantly illustrates the central conflict of the novel. On one side, we've got Charlie. He's a Black man. He spent 20 years wrongfully incarcerated. He gets suddenly freed by the event, and now he's trying to build this totally new life as a solar power professor at Howard University. And then, on the other side, is his 19-year-old biracial potter, Sydney, who he's actually never met. Sydney was raised in Wisconsin by her white mother and stepfamily, and she literally watched them walk into the water and drown. So she has internalized a lot of anti-Blackness and is deeply, deeply traumatized, kind of clinging to her whiteness in a world where it literally no longer exists. So you have these two strangers forced to navigate this brand new reality together.
Their physical destination on this road trip is the Kingdom of Mobile, Alabama, which is where Sydney believes she might actually have some remaining family. But as you might expect, this physical destination acts as a profound catalyst for their internal journeys. As they travel south, they aren't just moving across the map, they're moving through different, newly reconstructed societies. And this forces both of them to confront their own identities, their biases, and those really deep-seated traumas I mentioned.
And that brings us to Section 3, Visions of a Black Utopia, Rebuilding Society. One of the absolute best parts of speculative fiction is the world building. And Campbell constructs some really distinct cultural hubs to show exactly how different communities rebuilt society in the aftermath of the event. Campbell breaks down this rebuilt America into three main distinct visions. First up, in Washington, D.C., we see what he calls Black excellence. This is a heavy focus on traditional markers of success. People are wearing suits, working as doctors, and maintaining very formal societal structures. Then, our characters pass through Chicago, which embodies the Black Fantastic. This is all about joyful community, continuous cookouts, relaxation, and just celebrating existence without oppression. And finally, they reach Mobile, Alabama, which represents the AfroFuture.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Moby actually operates. Under the leadership of King Hosea and Queen Vivian, Moby leans heavily into Afrofuturism. They don't just rely on modern tech, they tap into ancient, ancestral, and spiritual roots. Like the text notes, it's this profound realization that their people had connection, power, and unification long before modern systems were ever put in place. Moby represents this deep, almost magical connection to history, utilizing vibrations, nature, and ancestral knowledge to literally rebuild the future. It's a really cool concept.
Section 4. Meaning behind the elephants and the unspoken trauma. You're probably wondering by now, where exactly does the title come into play? Well, the main visual and thematic anchor of this entire book is the metaphor of the elephants in the sky.
In some interviews, Campbell actually shared the real-world inspiration for this title. He was having a conversation with a white neighbor who was asking why he seemed to be holding on to historical pain. And in that moment, he realized she simply couldn't see the reality of his everyday experience. He told her, "It's like the sky is full of elephants, and you can't see them." So in the novel, the elephants represent that massive, incredibly heavy, unspoken historical trauma of systemic oppression that basically eclipses the sky for Black Americans. It's this looming weight that the rest of the world previously ignored, but which the characters have to finally confront head-on in this new world.
Moving on to Section 5, Praise and Revolutionary Impact, a healing masterpiece. As we move into the reception of the book, we absolutely have to look at how highly polarized it was. We're going to start by looking at the glowing praise from readers and critics who found this novel to be profoundly moving.
A lot of reviewers champion the book as this necessary and brilliant work of Pan-Africanism. They absolutely love the exploration of Ubuntu, which is the philosophy of unity and interconnectedness, especially as the characters try to build a collective future together. Fans were also praising the super rich world building of places like Chicago and Mobile, and favorably compared the novel to heavyweights like Percival Everett's James. They really noted its poetic writing style and its huge, ambitious swing discussing linguistics, power, and identity.
To really capture the sentiment of its biggest fans, one reviewer noted, "This book feels revolutionary. It's Black self-determination, and we're growing and building and thriving." For a lot of folks, this book served as a beautiful, cathartic exploration of joy and healing. It really asks the big question of what society could achieve if historical weights were just suddenly lifted off our shoulders.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 6, Critiques and Controversial Themes, and the polarized reception. Because, as much as it was praised, Sky Full of Elephants also sparked some incredibly fierce debates and heavy criticism from other readers.
Giving us a bit of visual whiplash from the glowing praise we saw just a second ago, here is a quote from a panel discussion on the popular YouTube channel, The Awkward Black Nomad. One reader starkly noted, "The main character could not escape the white gaze. It almost feels like an infatuation with whiteness." And this really highlights the core frustration some readers had. They felt that in a book supposedly about a world without whiteness, the characters actually spent an inordinate amount of time obsessing over it.
Critics fired off several logistical and thematic questions, too. There was deep frustration with the reliance on certain tropes, specifically Sydney acting as the deeply confused, tragic mulatto, and Charlie falling into the absent, formerly incarcerated Black father role. Readers also questioned the literal DNA logic of the cataclysmic event itself, like exactly what percentage of Black DNA saves someone from the water. Furthermore, some readers found it culturally disrespectful to use bodies of water, which are often seen as highly sacred ancestral spaces in Black spirituality, as the site of the oppressor's demise. And finally, a lot of people just wonder why Charlie remains so persistently angry and miserable, while he's quite literally surrounded by a joyful, thriving Black utopia.
So the crucial point is understanding the gap between the author's philosophical intent and the divided audience impact. Campbell's intent, right, was to create a blank slate to explore existence without the oppressor's gaze. However, for a very vocal segment of readers, the impact was that the heavy focus on Charlie and Sydney's trauma, their constant discussions of the past, and honestly, their self-hatred, actually kept them securely tethered to that exact same gaze. And for those readers, it prevented the characters from truly enjoying the utopia that was presented.
But regardless of which side of the table you sit on, whether you view it as this healing, poetic masterpiece or maybe a flawed execution of a really brilliant premise, it is an undeniable conversation starter. Sky Full of Elephants forces us as readers to confront deeply uncomfortable realities about identity, the lingering shadows of generational trauma, and exactly what it takes to reconstruct a society from the ground up.
Which leaves us with this final, genuinely provocative thought. If you were given a true blank slate to rebuild society tomorrow, without any of the systemic baggage of the past, what would you create? Would you lean into traditional excellence, joyful celebration, or maybe ancient spiritual roots? It's a massive question, and it's exactly what makes this urban sci-fi book overview so fascinating to explore. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep exploring those big what-ifs.